Tomorrow, Oklahoma voters will pick their next governor. One of those men on that ballot is sitting here today with me, Chip Keating, former Oklahoma Highway Patrol trooper, son of Governor Frank Keating, and the guy who says Oklahoma has been governing like a blue state. So we have 30 minutes. Let's get into it. Chip, how you doing today?
Rashar, I'm wonderful. Thanks for having me on. It's great to be back.
Okay, drop the comments in the comments blocks here if you're watching from Oklahoma. We're going to try to wrap out as much as we can in the next 30 minutes. So let's just start. I heard you say one time that Oklahoma governs like a blue state. Give me three specific budget line items you plan to cut in the first 90 days.
Yeah, and so if you look at where Oklahoma has been over the last 20 years, our appropriated budget was $6 billion 20 years
Right.
ago. It's going to approach $14 billion today, next year. And so year over year over year, that's growth at a pace of 18% a year. I can't speak to your wages or your viewers' wages, but I'll talk about my wages and our small business. We've grown anywhere close to that. And so if we want to get very serious about meaningful tax reform, freezing property taxes, eliminating the state income tax, modernizing our government, we cannot be a tax and spend liberal state. And so we are conservative in our values and our beliefs, but there is no way we have governed anywhere close to that. We have truly governed like a democratic state. And we see this happen all the time. Something new happens in Oklahoma, and the first thing we do, it's the definition of big government. We create a
Right.
new state agency to go deal with it. I mean, instead of integrating it into an existing state agency to deal with it. So having 380 agencies, boards, and commissions, waste, fraud, and abuse, bureaucracy, red tape, we have to really step up, wake up, and look to what other states have done recently over the last decade or so that have surpassed Oklahoma because they've woke up
Mm-hmm.
and figured out to actually start governing like the way we have to govern our household budgets. And we haven't been doing that. Our political leaders in our state haven't been behaving that way. And it's time for something different. I will get after it day one. We have to do it. We must do it, or Oklahoma is never going to catch up with the other states that are, frankly, have surpassed us and are beating us in all measurable outcomes.
I am looking forward to those first 90 days. You also said you wanted Oklahoma to be a manufacturing magnet. Which industries and which part of the state goes first?
Well, I think the most important thing that we need to do right now is we think about what is so important, what we have to offer in our natural resources. The oil and gas industry is the largest industry in our state, 60 billion a year GDP. Power is a big deal, a national security issue right now. How we really can expand on our power needs. It takes too long to build out our grid across the nation. Leaning in on our natural gas, doing so behind the meter, a great first step. That legislation was passed last year. In order to execute on behind the meter power, we need natural gas turbine manufacturing. It is all done in China. It is a national security issue. I want
Mm-hmm.
Oklahoma to become a natural gas turbine manufacturing magnet and the number one manufacturer in the United States. It's a massive deal for the world and not just our country, and we should really be executing on it. And frankly, if you see what Williams did, one of the largest forward purchase of turbines for their compressors, because it's a supply chain issue right now. So
Right.
this is something Oklahoma should really be doing and doing exceptionally well. And it frankly dovetails into such an important industry in our state, and that's the energy business.
I love the energy business. I'm also in the aviation business. Looking forward to seeing how those two can grow under your leadership. If the legislature pushes back, let's go to law enforcement on law enforcement unification on day one. What do you do about that?
Well, look, Rashard, I think this is a mandate right now. We are at the very bottom of most measurable outcomes against our peer states in the country. And why is that? Oklahoma should be a rich state. We got to get out of our own way. I've mentioned this from day one on our campaign trail. We have 380 agencies, boards, and commissions in the state of Oklahoma. Look at our neighbor to the east with Arkansas, 250 agency boards and commissions 8 years ago. They have 15 today. Cut the red tape, cut the
Mm.
bureaucracy, modernize the footprint of the state, have the deliverables and the outcomes and the services actually get to the people. I mean, that's not what we've been doing in Oklahoma. And there is an immense amount of just red tape, bureaucracy, waste, fraud, and abuse. But it's going to take a different kind of leader, a leader who's going to let the legislature get the credit. You get more done when you don't care who gets the credit. The governor's real tool in their toolkit, he or she, is the bully pulpit. We're a populous state. You got to go into this job day one leading and embracing and protecting the legislature and frankly not bullying them around or nothing will get done in Oklahoma.
You know, for everyone joining us, this is Chip Keating. He's on tomorrow's ballot for Oklahoma governor. The polls open at 7 a.m. You talk about protecting the legislature. I don't think I've heard anyone say that specifically. Do you think the last administration didn't give the legislature what they needed to do the job?
Well, look, I think Governor Stitt figured it out, in his second and third year in office. But going into it, truly as an outsider, Kevin Stitt was elected and hadn't really participated in the political process in Oklahoma. And I think,
Hmm.
as a guy who started his own company, was truly the chairman and CEO of it, I think he got into that job day one and thought the 149 members of the legislature, frankly, worked for him. And I think you've got to go into the job knowing that's not the case right out the gate. I do know that going into this day one and really leading and leaning in, I'm sorry, with the bully pulpit. And the reason I feel this is our time and this is our crossroads is I've traveled the state. People are really hungry for change. People are really upset that we are in the bottom in most outcomes, whether it be education, whether it be illicit drugs. Frankly, we tax everything under the sun in Oklahoma. We cannot get out of our own way. And I am totally convinced we're not getting out of our own way because we're such a big and bureaucratic state.
Right. Well, you know what? We've seen this from the sidelines, and we've seen the legislature and sometimes the governors at odds with each other. But the constituents are what matters most. At the end of the day, it's how we feel about what a governor does in his or her position to move the state forward. And everybody wants. Look, this is not a Republican thing. It's not a Democrat thing. I think genuinely everybody wants the state to prosper. It just, how do we get there? So you're working with a super majority. You got some Democrats who do some good work, but I like the idea where you said you will work and use the bully pulpit to get what the voters want done. I think people need to understand that. Gettner Drummond and the marijuana money at Blue Sky Bank, if he makes a runoff, if he makes it in the runoff and endorses you, um, do you accept it? So if he does not make the runoff and, and he endorses you, will you accept his endorsement?
I wouldn't expect. I don't know. I can't speak if Gittner would endorse or not. I would accept his endorsement of his voters. That's the endorsement that I am most after is the voters of Oklahoma. Um, Obviously, I very much differ than the AG as it relates to the illicit drugs and the marijuana. I've been very clear on the campaign trail. You either bank it or you bust it. I don't like the fact that you're out claiming to do both when you're profiting from it as well. That's
Mm-hmm.
hypocrisy. I want courage and I want integrity and I want to root the illicit drug crisis out of our state. I also want to shine the light in on public corruption in Oklahoma. Our state has a major public corruption problem. The rules for thee, not for me. I cannot stand that kind of behavior in politics. And I've called the attorney general out on it before, very publicly on the campaign trail. That ends day one under a Keating administration.
Looking forward to that. We've seen the attacks, especially from one of your opponents over the OU health issue. Can you give the 30-second version that you want voters to walk away from that today?
Well, it doesn't surprise me. I'm running against three career politicians. And so I don't have to defend a voting record the way these other three career politicians do. And the voting record that has led us to being dead last in very measurable outcomes. So they start making lies up about my record. I have two daughters. Nobody in this governor's race is for gender reassignment. It's just silly and dumb. I sat on an advisory board at a 30,000-foot level that oversees the finances, and there was a rogue doctor there that, frankly, we found out that she was
Mm,
doing some silly stuff, and we fired her on the spot. And so, my opponents to make something more than what this really is just total nonsense. It's a total lie. I don't think voters are buying it. I'm a father of two daughters. Frankly, what I want to do, and they're all talk. Why are we not talking about penalties, stricter penalties for any rogue doctor? I talk about having been a former state trooper. It's illegal to drink and drive, yet people still drink and drive. And there are
hmm.
consequences when you get stopped. As governor, I will make the strictest penalties if a rogue doctor tries to commit child abuse to one of our minors and does a gender reassignment procedure, which, by the way, none have ever been done in Oklahoma. But to the extent down the road one does do it, I would literally make the penalty so stiff that that person would never see the light of day on the street ever again in their life.
Good. The majority of Oklahomans, I saw a poll, even Democrats, reject the idea of gender mutilation is what it is. What is your father? Let's go back to your family. You have a great family story. Uh, everyone loves your dad. Everyone loves your mom, and everyone asks a question when they see me. What do you think about the family? And I always say, he has the best support, the best family around him. But what does your dad actually think about how this race has gone so far? Has he given you any insights to what he thinks, what he observes?
I'm so blessed. And, that's another thing, Rashard. And I know you're so politically attuned and watch the debates. I mean, I even these guys, it just shows how low integrity they have. To attack me for because of the family I come from is almost remarkable how ugly this race has become. My father and my mom led Oklahoma during its darkest times, and the Oklahoma Standard came out of that. And so I've been a sponge growing up around my mom and my dad, who were
Right,
incredible
right.
leaders for this great state. And so I tell people, my father is always there as a sounding board if I have questions. The best advice he's given me is stay positive. I think that's what I hear from many Oklahomans all across the state of how appreciative they are of a positive campaign that we've run. Just talk about the message, what I'm going to do for Oklahoma, and frankly, bring that Oklahoma Standard back to Oklahoma. The political mudslinging and the lies and everything we've seen in this race really is pretty sad for Oklahoma. It's not who we are, but I think it just goes to show how desperate these guys are for their next gig, and they want to hold on to power. And all three of them have all been in a very significant form of power in the state, whether it be the Speaker, the AG, or the Senate Pro Tem. Those are very powerful positions in the state. Where has service, go serve and go back to the private sector gone? I mean, this office hopping career politics is just unbelievable. I think Oklahomans are tired of it and ready to move on from it. New leadership, vibrant leadership, humble leadership, integrity. That's what I'm going to bring to Oklahoma.
You know what? I have a question here from a viewer. He asked, why can't Oklahoma do its own thing under tribal sovereignty? I know you want to get back to working relationship with the tribes, but um, can you answer his question? Why can't Oklahoma do its own thing under tribal sovereignty?
Well, look, Oklahoma for the last 100+ years, up until the last 7.5 years, we've been compacting with our tribes. And before gaming was legalized, I think that was in 2004. We had motor vehicle fuel sales compacts, we had tobacco compacts. So Oklahoma, I should say, has been compacting with the tribes for the last 100+
Right.
years. We have to get back to compacting. That is the uniqueness of Oklahoma. We need to unite with our tribes. The tribes can be a very important uh, uh, partner with the state of Oklahoma with a lot of the
Right.
issues our state is facing. And the only way we're going to be able to do that is get back to working together. We got to find compromise, do it behind closed doors, and come out united together. That is who we are as Oklahomans. And that's exactly what I'm going to bring back from a leadership perspective to the governor's office.
Absolutely. My good friend Faith Garver Campbell down south of me asked a question about dark money. So, thoughts on it? A lot of folks don't have an idea what it is. I have a little bit idea what it is, but a lot of money, a lot of dark money has been used in this campaign. What are your thoughts on dark money?
So I've been asked this a lot over the last month. I would love to see comprehensive campaign finance reform happen in Oklahoma where there's no need for dark money. I think that you ought to have to report within some 48 or 72-hour window of who the money is behind these entities. And whether it's for a campaign cycle or frankly for a ballot initiative, I think it's only fair for Oklahomans to know who is driving the money behind the messaging. And look at what we saw with frenzy of ballot initiatives over the last 8 years, with whether it
Right,
be medical marijuana, criminal
right.
justice reform, recreational marijuana, jungle primaries, now this 832 with the minimum wage. That's largely being fueled by out of state money sources. And I think if Oklahomans knew who was behind it, they would overwhelmingly reject it. And so I would love to see comprehensive campaign finance reform done in Oklahoma, where the days of being able to hide like you're the Wizard of Oz behind a curtain are over.
Campaign for reform, that's a subject that everyone wants to talk about. But the other issue, I got some questions here. What's your take on AI data centers in Oklahoma? For,
Yeah, so
against,
this has
no
been
opinion?
Yep, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, Rashard. This has been a very important topic across the campaign trail in every square inch of the state. And so, what I've said from the very beginning, AI data centers, they are coming. They're here in the US. What we need to be very cautious and leery around are what are the things that are fearful around them, because it's a national security issue. China's trying to win. India's trying to win. The US has to win. It truly is a national security threat. So being cautious, whether it be power, water, subsidies, and
Right.
local control. The state needs to set the parameters and lead on those issues. And I've said from the very beginning, number one, no subsidies at all. Number two, they cannot utilize our grid and put it on the heels or the backs of the ratepayers. Number three, they can't use our groundwater or aquifer water. That's the most precious resource that we have. And then number four, local control. We are a populous state. Local control should be paramount in any decisions that a community makes. So if Norman doesn't want data centers where you are, they shouldn't have them. But if Sealing, Oklahoma wants them, then Sealing gets to make that decision. Where we as a state need to create the boundaries are saying no to the subsidies, no to the groundwater, and on power, behind the meter. That's why I talked about that earlier and the
Right.
importance of natural gas turbine manufacturing. The technology's there. It's a supply chain issue where the direct power, these things ultimately want to be self reliant on direct power. They're not huge job providers long term. And then I've been very clear from the very beginning, every well in the state of Oklahoma, and again, we're so blessed to have natural gas everywhere in our state, utilize the produced water. It's all on a loop system and descale it for any of the cooling needs. Now we're solving two problems in killing two birds with one stone. So produced water is an important and a controversial issue with injection well water that every single oil and gas well produces. This is not your good water. This is your brine water or your gray water. That technology exists today. So it's time for the state to lead on this around those parameters. And let's sit down and make sure we do this right and don't find ourselves in the same situation we did with wind and giving out a bunch of subsidies, no jobs, and then a big eyesore.
Chip Keating, thank you for being on the show. You've got 2 minutes left to talk to your supporters, talk to those undecideds. What do you want to say for them tomorrow to get for those that are undecided? What do you want to say to them?
Well, Rashar, I think it's very simple. Number one, thank you for having me on. I'm very grateful, and it's great to be back. But our state's at a crossroads. We really are. We cannot afford to get this wrong. We are dead last in education. 1 in 4 eighth graders can't read and write. We're number one per capita incarcerated. We have an illicit drug crisis that is out of control. We tax everything under the sun. We need an
Mm-hmm.
outsider. We need somebody that, frankly, has a selfless servant heart that wants to serve and go back to the private sector. I want to serve Oklahomans. I'm not worried about special interests. I'm not looking for a job beyond this job. I'm walking away from my own small business. I am a former state trooper. I've taken an oath to protect and serve. But the folks I'm running against collectively have worked in that building in very significant power positions for 30 years. And so you have to ask yourself a simple question. Are you happy with where our state is today? And if you're happy being, dead last in education, if you're happy being in the bottom of most measurable outcomes, if you're happy having an illicit drug crisis here, homelessness crisis, mental health crisis, then I guess vote for any of the other three gentlemen that are at kind of the top of the ticket. But if you believe Oklahoma can be better, if you believe Oklahoma should be better for our families and for our kids and for our grandkids, I'm humbly asking for your vote. I want to be your governor for Oklahoma, not of Oklahoma, and for a greater Oklahoma. And I want to do it, serve selflessly, and I want to get right back to the private sector, the way our founding fathers intended of this great nation of service to be founded upon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chip. This has been 30 Minutes with Chip Keating. Polls open tomorrow morning at 7 a.m. and close at 7 p.m. tomorrow night. Share this video with anyone in Oklahoma who has not decided yet. That could make a difference. We're trying to beat the Facebook algorithm on conservative content. I'm Rashard Tortorella, your host, and we'll see you guys later. Thank you, Chip.
Thanks, Rashar.
Good luck.
Thank you, sir.